A good friend of mine, Norman Bass, he's always told me that all the sports he's played professional football, professional baseball, but all the sports he's played, he's never encountered so many crazy people that play the game of table tennis.
Am I addicted to table tennis? Well, if you ask my wife, she'd probably say yes. I don't think I am, although it is a passion, and I do enjoy it, and I do play quite a lot. Uh, Twice a week for 4 hours in the evenings, and I usually devote my lunch hour during the week to practicing as well, so I get 10, 12 hours a week in. I don't know, is that addictive? Perhaps.
I am definitely addicted to table tennis and hooked for life. For me, it's a lifelong sport, and I like the fact that if I live to be 70 or 80, it's a sport I can still play.
I'm pretty well hooked on table tennis. I've been playing since junior high school. I guess at that age, all the kids need to have something that they're successful at. And when I was in the 7th grade, I could beat the 9th graders. It got me a lot of chicks and dates and stuff like that. So you find something you succeed at and you stick with it through the years, and that's why I'm still hooked at it here, pushing 60 years old.
Well, I got into it as a kid simply because I lived in a town, an industrial town, where there was a few guys that organized industrial table tennis leagues, and they wanted to have kind of a farm program for teenagers to play in this adult industrial league when they got good enough or old enough. And so they started organizing kids in junior high school.
I've never had the same self-satisfaction with any other sports. Something about a 9-foot table, long, and the ball reaching speed up to 100 miles an hour, and the reflexes, the hand-eye coordination that is required to play at a competitive level. I just found it really intense for me and just fun. I mean, just the reaction time and the physics of the game is just remarkable.
Interesting thing about it is it's not age-based. You can get somebody that's 75 years old that is incredibly skilled, or you can get somebody that's a beginner at the same age. So it's skill-based as opposed to age-based competition for the most part.
For the most part, it's a player sport and it's a manufacturer sport. And all of the people who are here tonight are players. Those are the only spectators. And yet they were not mesmerized by what they saw. There were some extraordinarily good rallies from time to time, but throughout there was not a drama that was transmitted where the audience walks away thinking about what they saw. A beautiful spectacle, a ballet-like performance. You had that with classical table tennis. We did that, all right? And if you look at the film of I winning the British Championship, that's a classic film today, done by Pathé, and that's available. You'll see that, from time to time. And it shows me beating Victor Bonner in five games, a very dramatic event. And it shows me doing my thing out there. In terms of ballet, yes, I'd spin around, and return smash shots, doing a pirouette-like shot, So, the game did have a kind of an aesthetic beauty, as well as a drama to it, you see. Well, it was a pure game before, and we're bringing that back. It was a classical game of table tennis, which had lain in a dormant state since 1952, when a Japanese player showed up at the World Championship in Bombay, India, the only one in the world using what I call a fraudulent racket. That was a sponge racket.
There was a revolution that occurred in table tennis in the mid to late 1950s when sponge rubber paddles first were introduced. Prior to that, from the 1920s to the 1950s, everybody played with hard rubber pimpled sponge and no layer of sponge underneath between the wood and the pimpled rubber. In the 1950s, the Japanese came to the World Tournament in Bombay in 1952 with a racket that had a layer of sponge between the pimple rubber and the wood. And it made no sound when the ball would rebound out of it. It was like catching it in a mattress and throwing it back at you. It so disoriented all of the players because you're used to hearing the sound of the ball when it hits the wood that the man who played with that paddle, Sato was his name, he won the world championship, and he was unranked and unseeded. It was a complete upset. And it changed the sport from then on. Between 1952 and 1960, 95% of the rest of the players in the world played with sponge.
Do I like sponge? I hate sponge.
Where does Marty fit in? Marty Reisman? Yeah, 1948, 49, 50, 51, 52. In that era, he was probably one of the top 2 hardbat greats of all time, anywhere in the world. And of course, hardbat is a whole different element and racket type than the modern sponge rubber rackets that they use today. It has no sponge underbase. It has pimples or pips that are faced outward, not inward and inverted like the sponge rackets today. And of course, the biggest result is you can't impart a lot of spin on the ball. You have to generate spin differently, and the spin that you can generate is oftentimes reduced compared to what you would get with a sponge rubber racket. And it changes the game. It truly does. And I think in his case, when the individual from Japan in 1952 introduced a sponge rubber racket at the Worlds, that changed the course of table tennis, because he and several others were at the top of their game at that point. And, basically what happened is somebody came out with a new technology and just pulled the rug out from under the people that were hardbat experts. And that's precisely what happened. At the peak of his career, basically the rules started to change. And that's very unfortunate, but clearly he's one of the greatest of all time hardbat players that I've ever heard of or seen.
The classic game of table tennis, the player does not have to fight against the racket. So you can have these long, drawn-out rallies. There's almost a dialogue that takes place between the two players that a child could understand. Whereas at the modern-day game, the point is made or lost by some imperceptible twist of the wrist that escapes the audience. So it's a lot of mystery involved, obfuscation, deceit, fraud, as I describe it. But in table tennis, the classic game of table tennis, there's a language which is beautiful to behold. It's a question, answer, response that anybody in the audience can understand, and it's the beauty of the game that we play.
The difference between table tennis and ping pong is really just nomenclature. When the sport got started, ping pong was what everybody called it. Parker Brothers, the company that made Monopoly, got a copyright on the name ping pong. So when the National Association got started in the 30s, they had to come up with another name because they couldn't infringe on a copyright. But the reality is most people now refer to ping pong as gnip, gnop, gnip, gnop, like in the basement. And table tennis is the highly competitive speed glue, exotic rubber power game. And it's just a delineation that most people use to try to make themselves feel good about being a table tennis player instead of a ping pong player.
For the most part, ping pong, I think, is associated by many people these days as being a basement sport, kind of along the same order and magnitude of horseshoes and darts, perhaps. Of course, probably the dart people are going to get mad that I said that, but to me, darts is kind of a sport similar to that too. Table tennis, on the other hand, being an Olympic sport, is just that. It's a real full-time endeavor. Table tennis is a game of spin and skill, deception, control, and a lot of other factors that people just don't often realize initially.
But keep in mind, even though your hair gets old and when you take your hair off you have a bald head, you can still get a body like this playing table tennis.